Are the stars aligning or moving for quarterbacks in the AFC North? We'll figure it out. Ball don't lie. Neither does Rasheed Wallace, the former NBA superstar, joins us to break it all down. And clapped by Cleveland, are the Knicks the least of the East? Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. Caroline Fenton, I'm Jason Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we are rack stacked to pack to get you caught up on everything you need to know on Yahoo Sports Daily. It's already that time. We got a lot to get into. We're going to get into all the NBA action. It is fantastic. As I just mentioned, we're super stoked Rasheed Wallace is going to join us. But, Caroline, we start with lion season because this is the time of year where everybody starts lying to everybody else in Indianapolis. This is where the scouting combine lets everybody tell, no, that you look great, man. You don't look like you put on a single pound. They are all lying to each other, and we got GMs yesterday that gave us all of the magic. So, figure we're going to try and break this down and figure out how much honesty we got out of the scouting combine with some of the biggest reports. Let's start with one that you know I'm interested in. My buddy Maxx Crosby was all the conversation here. And look, John Spytek, the GM of the Raiders, spoke at the combine. And when he was asked if he expected that Maxx Crosby would be a Raider next year, he said, I do. Yes. All right, so what do we make of it? Is he lying to us? Is this real or is it false? Where are you on Spytek saying, I do believe Maxx Crosby will be a Raider?
Let me just say this before we get into the Maxx Crosby of it all. Any football fans out there that say, oh, I don't like Bravo or Keeping Up with the Kardashians or The Real Housewives. Yeah, you do. Football is just a different version of that. Because football is the world's greatest drama and soap opera. And the NFL Combine, all of the news that we're going to hear over the next couple of days is the perfect example of that. And I think that tweet shows the perfect way that some of these things put our brain into a pretzel. Is that confidence or is that leverage? It's like, I don't know. It's everything's a smokescreen. Take literally everything that you hear from now until at least the draft, if not from now and through training camp. Take everything with a grain of salt. I think John Spytek, though, is playing this smartly. I think that's kind of what John Spytek has to say. So if Maxx Crosby is unhappy in Vegas, and we don't know how Maxx Crosby feels, he has intentionally kept a lot of things close to the vest. We had Jay Glazer on our show. He said he does expect Maxx Crosby to get traded. Maxx Crosby said, hey, if it doesn't come from me, then don't believe it. Again, take everything with a grain of salt. It's not crazy to think, though, that Maxx Crosby could be upset or frustrated with the Las Vegas Raiders organization. They suck. They stink. Maxx Crosby wants to win. Maxx Crosby knows that he is quickly approaching potentially the twilight of his career. He wants to win a Super Bowl. So if he is unhappy with the Raiders, which is a fair conclusion to make, John Spytek is trying to publicly, I would say, repair that relationship as much as possible. Spytek is trying, everything in his power to publicly show Maxx Crosby that the Raiders have pledged their allegiance to him. Now, what John Spytek is not saying is Maxx Crosby absolutely, positively, 1,000%, no question, no doubt about it, will be a Raider. He's saying, I expect him to be here. I do expect him to be a Vegas Raider. He is not drawing any line in the sand, but he is publicly showing Maxx Crosby his loyalty to him as much as he possibly can, while still making sure that he's opening the door for phone calls for anybody who would be willing to sell the farm for Maxx Crosby. I think it was a smart way to approach it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Not sure you had to make it so clear how bad the Raiders are, but I do agree 100% with what you're saying here, especially when it comes to the way that this is being handled for leverage. If you're John Spytek and you come out and say, no, we're trading Max, you just hurt your leverage. If you come out and you say, yes, we're going to do everything, we expect him to be a Raider this year, you're telling teams we're not just going to move off of him. He also did say we're always listening. I don't think any of this is hot take. I think part of this is the process. And as you mentioned publicly right now, I think it's important for the organization to make sure that Max is appreciated and Max is getting the deference that he deserves for the way he plays. I was asked yesterday on Raider Nation Radio, I was doing an interview with him yesterday afternoon, and I was asked, what's it going to take? If we all think that it's a sit down that makes things right, what's it going to take? And the funny thing is, without knowing that Max was going to later tweet something from this or Instagram, I mentioned Max loves movies like Scarface and The Godfather, The Sopranos. He loves loyalty. He loves this concept of like mafia-like loyalty. What I said at the time was, man, the reason that he loves that is because he loves this concept of everybody belongs to everybody. He loves this fierce loyalty, right? So to me, what the Raiders need to do is sit down at a table with Maxx one-on-one and have that real conversation of, here's why we did it. Here's why we sat you down. Here's why we would do it again, because we got to look out for our own, but here's why we respect you. Yeah. Like when you talk about the world that Maxx sees as respect, you've got to give him that same level of respect. It's ironic to me that a couple hours later, Maxx put something up on Instagram from Scarface. Like, I think this is all part of a long plan. I still believe Maxx Crosby is going to be a Raider. I was shocked when Jay Glazer said he wasn't. I respect Jay coming in and telling us that on our show. Turned out to be a great viral moment. We didn't know that. I still think he ends up in Vegas. But I think that Spytek is doing this the right way. This is all part of the rebuilding of whatever the relationship looks like between the player and the team. But that's not the only GM that spoke. We have others, and it gets a little spicy with the next one. How about this? We've had plenty to say about the failings of the Houston Texans and particularly C.J. Stroud. Well, Nick Caserio of the Texans, their GM, came out and called trade speculation about C.J. Stroud, quote, moronic, and then emphasized, quote, we're not trading CJ. We're glad he's our quarterback. What say you, Caroline?
You sure about that? You sure about that? I don't know of a single Houston Texan fan that's overjoyed that CJ Stroud is their quarterback after he was playing as a double agent for the New England Patriots in the postseason. I think, if I want to put this into my little GM translator, it's moronic because you don't have another path to a quarterback. I would agree with that. That if you want to trade CJ Stroud, yeah, that's great and all. You're pumping your chest, but who's playing quarterback for you next year in a quarterback market it has a whole lot of demand and not a whole lot of supply? So are you overjoyed with CJ Stroud? Of course not. Do you think that CJ Stroud is your future? I do not believe so in Houston. But it wouldn't be moronic because CJ Stroud is this crazy, once-in-a-lifetime kind of quarterback talent. It would be moronic because you don't have another option. What are you going to go to Davis Mills? So I would agree that it would be moronic because he's your best option right now. But that doesn't mean that C.J. Stroud will be or should be the Texans quarterback for the long term.
So this is one interesting to me because, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. What I need to know from Nick Caserio isn't what they're doing with C.J. Stroud. What I need to know is what are they doing around C.J. Stroud? Because nothing changes the fact that C.J. Stroud's rookie year was one of the best we've ever seen at the quarterback position. So what the hell happened after that? How much of it's on the player? How much of it's on the organization? Have they actually put the right people in the room since his rookie year to get the best out of C.J. Stroud? Because we've seen what the best looks like. And when I've seen that from a quarterback, look, in my mind, it's a hell of a lot easier to find another offensive mind, another offensive coordinator, another quarterback coach, find another head coach. You can find all of those things easier than you can find a top 10 quarterback. And C.J. Stroud in his rookie year looked like he had every ounce of potential necessary to be a top 10 quarterback in this league for the foreseeable future. He looked like he was going to jettison his way straight to the same tier as the Joshes and the Lamars and the Mahomes. It looked like this was a surefire thing. The Texans don't need to just answer the question of, are they keeping their quarterback? The more important question that they need to answer is, how are they going to get the most out of their quarterback? Because frankly, I'm looking squarely at their GM and saying, hey, I got a question for you. When we've seen greatness from the quarterback and you can't recapture it, how much of that is squarely at your feet? So yes, I do think you're right that they don't have another option. But if they get to a situation where C.J. Stroud isn't their quarterback long-term and they're going back to the well again, the number one question I think the Texans are going to have to answer is, how did you fail someone that looked so good at one point?
At what point do we have to move on from C.J. Stroud's rookie year? At what point do we have to look at it and say, maybe C.J. Stroud just caught lightning in a bottle and that year was special and will go down as one of the greatest rookie years that we have ever seen in this league? But maybe he's less of what he was then and more of what he is now. I don't think we are necessarily there yet, 100%, but I'm approaching that. You threw 4 picks in a playoff game when you had a lights out defensive performance. You had a Super Bowl caliber defense that was completely flushed down the toilet because CJ Stroud couldn't stop throwing the football to the team in Navy. So I hear you that we can keep looking back at the rookie year of CJ Stroud, but it's like like a failed relationship, right? You look back at the early days and the honeymoon period and you're like, why can't we get back to that? And then you think about what has happened in recent history, and you're fighting all the time and you're bickering and you're going back and forth and you can't find a common ground. And it's like, well, maybe that honeymoon phase is just over and we're not a good fit. Maybe it was just a little bit of beginner's luck there at the beginning. At some point, you do have to look at what CJ Stroud has done for you lately and not what CJ Stroud did for you 2 years ago.
You're right. I always get stuck. Frank Schwab, our good friend and our Yahoo coworker, I was working with him on inside coverage during that year. And the number of times he said, this is the best rookie year I've ever seen, better than Marino. And when you have that level of greatness, man, I wonder how much of it's on the player. But you're right. They're going to have to figure it out. Speaking of figuring it out, we've also got the Chiefs GM coming out talking to us, Brett Veach, talking to us about Travis Kelce, because we've got to figure out, is Kelce going to be a Chief next year? And this is what he said. Travis is the best. He's an icon. We'll just let that process play out. All right. So honestly, Caroline, I think this is also the right answer. You ain't going to get Travis Kelce to rush back into it. And what you want him to do is take time, have a little bit of time off. I hear he's dating someone somewhat famous, and I think they've got some things going on their calendar. Like, if I ran the Chiefs, I'd be doing exactly what Veach does. I'd be making my backup plans for how I'm going to continue to build my roster, but I'd also make it wildly clear that if Travis Kelce decides the day before the regular season he wants to come back and play football, we're good with that. We just want Kelce on the field if he's willing to come back.
I think Travis Kelce has earned the right to go out whenever he wants, however he wants. I think that's the, kind of the right thing to say. That's the right way to approach it. Look, there are certain guys that have enough skins on the wall, that have earned that equity to be able to just call their own shots. And I think the Chiefs as an organization want to show to Travis Kelce and really to the rest of the league, like, look, we're going to take care of our superstars, a superstar on the field and now a superstar off the field. I would be surprised if we saw Travis Kelce play again next year, but maybe there's a bad taste in his mouth about the way that this past year went. Maybe Travis Kelce is like, look, I've won so many Super Bowls and have gone to so many Super Bowls. I'm not going out like this. It did look rough, though, at times. Like, Travis Kelce at times this past year did very much so look his age. So the Chiefs have to understand that. The Chiefs have to acknowledge, look, Travis Kelce at age 36, 37 is not going to be able to produce for us like he was at 32 or 31 or 30. So we have to put the right pieces around Patrick Mahomes to make this team, again, a Super Bowl contender. That was on clear display this past season. But Travis Kelce has earned the right to call his own shots, and I respect the general manager for allowing him to do so, giving him the space to do so.
I just want to remind everybody, because you're right, it didn't always look easy. He finished the 6th in the NFL for tight ends for catches last year and 4th in the entire NFL for tight ends in yards last year. So even though it didn't look like the Kelce of old, it still looked better than almost every tight end in the NFL. One more, we'll get in here real quick. The Bucs GM, Jason Light, said, we'd love to have Mike Evans back. Ultimately, we'd like to have him retire as a Buck. What say you? We getting truths or lies here from the GM?
No, well, okay. What kind of thing could be a truth or a lie? What Jason Light is saying is not Mike Evans 1000% will be back. What Jason Light is not saying is Mike Evans will 1000% not be a Buck. What Jason Light is saying is we'd love to have him here. Who wouldn't? I think Mike Evans is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the National Football League. I mean, Mike Evans does not get enough credit for his consistency. Mike Evans does not get enough credit for his availability. And sure, yeah, he's coming off of the injury of last year, but Mike Evans, for a massive part of his career, has largely been available, effective, and incredibly productive. So I don't think Jason Light is lying at all when he's saying that he would love Mike Evans to retire a Buck. What he's not saying is The money has to make sense. What he's not saying is that's, we're going to take calls on Mike Evans, see what the market is looking like for Mike Evans. So I think Jason Light is not saying the loud part out loud, but what Jason Light is saying, I think, is 1,000% the truth. They want him in the locker room. Mike Evans has said he wants to retire a buck. It just has to make sense.
That's the hardest part about it, because you're right. I mean, all of this, look, the Bucks are kind of in the middle of the pack with salary cap space, but they have some easily convertible contracts. If it's just about we want to keep Mike Evans no matter what, they could afford to pay him as much or more than anybody in the NFL if they want to. But at the end of the day, what he's saying is the right thing. We want him back here. What he's also not saying is how much they're willing to pay to have the luxury of having Mike Evans come back there. So there are layers and nuance to it. As a reminder, we're just getting started from Indy, by the way. Make sure you check out Football 301 Inside Coverage. We've got great coverage across the Yahoo Sports Network all day live from Indy. So be sure you are keeping it tuned to Yahoo Sports. In the meantime, that is not the only rumors that we got through the course of the action in Indy. There were quarterback rumors galore. What's the future look like for that man? Did we get closer to any sort of an indication that the future is bright for Baltimore and Lamar? We'll answer that next.
Who's the dream fight? Like, who's the final boss for you?
Nyla Inoue.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I feel like he's the guy.
What a freaking fight that would be.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
How far away do you think you are from this, like, maybe being a thing?
I would say maybe a year.
Yeah.
Maybe just a year away. Yeah, it's
Is the
right
dream
there.
to try to, like, get more belts so that entices him to come after you? Okay.
100%. He's going to get a wake-up call fighting a guy like me.
And Kenneth Walker wins Super Bowl MVP.
The way he's kind of molded his game to work for him has been fun, because it's such a hard turn from where he started. Sometimes it feels like a more dramatic version of like how Le'Veon Bell used to run the ball, how Le'Veon would stop and wait and see things open. But Le'Veon, he was hugging the ass of his centers and his guards. Kenneth is he's stepped back so he can see the whole picture open up. And then when it hits, he's off.
The Sixers, to me, are the biggest loser of the trade deadline. You get these middling picks for Jared McCain, one of your most promising young players, to duck the tax. Just a joke. If I'm a Sixers fan, I'm infuriated. The Sixers, losers this trade deadline. It's just so disappointing for Philadelphia, man.
Who in college football could experience that same level of redemption arc? And I was thinking, we've actually kind of seen it a little bit in the past. I would say Jaden Daniels did. Remember when his teammates were like throwing his things out of his locker and talking trash about him when he left Arizona State, and then he goes and wins the Heisman at LSU?
It was a little bit of a turnaround. I wonder what those guys are doing now.
Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta told reporters at the Combine that he's confident the team will get a contract extension done with quarterback Lamar Jackson. This is a big statement, Caroline, because, frankly, this is one of the biggest stories of the offseason. Where we are right now with the contract of Lamar versus where we would be if he had additional years on his contract is staggering to the salary cap. The Ravens are up against it. If they're going to get an extension done, I cannot stress this enough, it doesn't do them a hill of beans worth of good to do it in the middle of, April, right? If they're going to do it, they need to get it done now, because the beginning of free agency is right around the corner, and having that cash will greatly change the way they approach their entire offseason, depending on whether or not they have an extension for Lamar. So when DeCosta says, I think we can get an extension done, I'm looking at it squarely saying, boy, you better be saying you think you can get an extension done in checks math the next week and a half?
Well, it affects everything, because if Lamar Jackson doesn't get the extension, then you can't push the salary cap hit down the line. So what are you going to have, a $75 million salary cap hit on your books? Of course not, because that affects, can you re-sign Tyler Linderbaum? We heard Eric DeCosta say that they want to give Tyler Linderbaum a record-setting market deal. Well, you can't do that if you have $75 million of cap space tied up in your quarterback and nowhere to kick it down the line. It affects who you can sign in free agency, which then would affect your draft plan. Because if you can't sign, position XYZ in free agency, then you have to turn to the draft for it. Then you have to reprioritize, positional value. You have to reprioritize, any contracts that might be coming up next year as well. Because this isn't just a 2026 issue. Lamar Jackson's cap hit is $75 million next year too. So it affects your roster construction next year as well. So it affects everything that the Ravens want to do. The interesting thing here though is we have to approach Lamar's contract discussions differently than any other quarterback in the National Football League, because Lamar Jackson doesn't have a representation. He doesn't have an agent. He doesn't have representation. He represents himself. He negotiates with the Ravens and with Eric DeCosta himself, along with his team and along with his mom. So that's different than the way that any other agent could or would go about it. So I was never really worried about Lamar not being a Raven long-term to begin with. I'm not really worried about the Ravens getting something done, because what is Lamar going to do? Say, no thanks, I don't want to sign an extension and I'll test free agency next year? Or what is Lamar going to do? Force a trade? The Ravens aren't going to trade Lamar Jackson. The Ravens are going to do every single thing in their power to extend Lamar Jackson, even if that means paying the piper in 2033. Because the Ravens have a Super Bowl contending team in 2026, and that should be the Ravens' number one priority. Extend Lamar Jackson at all costs, and I think Eric DeCosta understands that and feels the heat and understands the urgency to get this deal done. The question is, does Lamar feel that same sense of urgency, knowing that he doesn't have an agent that can negotiate for him and can kind of, rationalize this with him?
Right, because part of the difficulty here is you got to make it advantageous to Lamar, right? So Lamar this year, going into this season, has $29 million in guaranteed money coming to him. After that, next year has no guaranteed money, and then the last 2 years avoidable. So this is the right time to come into Lamar and say, hey, we want to make sure that we give you epic money. Of course, this is the right time to sort of guarantee his future as best you can, right? So it makes a ton of sense. But to your point, because he doesn't have representation the same way so many other agents or so many other athletes do, I just keep waiting to hear from Lamar. Like, this is the hardest part. And we went through this the last time Lamar negotiated. Like, he's not the type to use the microphone to try and negotiate in public. So a lot of people had a lot of things to say about what Lamar was trying to do and what he really wanted. And it turns out almost everybody was wrong about that process because, again, without an agent, nobody's leaking any information to anybody. Nobody's really giving you a heads up. The only people that know what Lamar is looking for in this process would be Lamar and his trusted circle, whoever that is. So that's none of us in the media. So we're all basically just guessing on what makes sense. Now, certainly, if you're Lamar, you're 29 years old, all right? You have the opportunity to do another deal right now. You could do a long-term deal. You can get a bunch of money today, and they can prorate that over the course of this deal. But we also know that in the past, it was important to him that it essentially be guaranteed money for as much of it as possible. He wanted as much fully guaranteed money as could be made available to him, and that's what he fought for and ultimately feels like he got. So that wasn't a quick or easy negotiation, and that's why I think this gets really complicated, Caroline, because the last time these two teams negotiated, it took a long time and it was complicated. I don't know why suddenly I'm supposed to believe it's not also going to take a long time and it's complicated. And the one thing that Lamar has is all the time in the world to get it done. He can wait, but the Ravens don't have that same luxury. So when you have two people sitting at the table and they have very different timelines, it certainly gives leverage to the person that's sitting back saying, hey, I don't actually need to do anything with my deal. Actually, we could just run this back this year and next year for all I care. In that sense, Lamar holds so many chips that the Ravens are going to have to make it worthwhile for him to turn around and do a long-term deal, even though it makes a ton of sense to lock in more years for Lamar also.
That's the key. The Ravens have to make it worth it for Lamar Jackson. Because what do we know about the quarterback market? It balloons every single year. So Lamar has the luxury of sitting back and saying, Look, I'll wait on extending my deal and let the quarterback market come to me. Oh, Daniel Jones is going to make $40-45 million a year, whatever it is. Malik Willis is going to make $25-30 million a year. Well, then that quarterback market just bumping up. It's not crazy to think that a quarterback of the caliber of Lamar Jackson could make $60 million in base salary over the next couple of years. So you're 1000% right. Lamar could just sit back and ride this thing as long as he wants. What can the Ravens do to make it worthwhile right now? I worked with a 15-year NFL veteran for a long time on radio in Nashville. And he said, what I learned in my time in the NFL is, void years doesn't matter. Number of years on the deal, sure it matters, but also not the most important thing. Base salary, that's really just a flex for you, to say that, hey, I make this much money. The only thing that matters, this is what he told me, the only thing that matters to players, how much cash is going in my pocket right now. What are the guarantees? Not the signing, or not the bonuses, not the if you get 50 catches this year, we'll pay you an extra $500,000. No. All those things are fine and good and all. How much money is guaranteed to go into my pocket, and what check can I cash right now today? That's the key. That's the only leverage that I think the Ravens have in getting this deal done right now. And also the way that they can alleviate their books is what check can we write to Lamar Jackson right now that is guaranteed to kind of convert it into a signing bonus, push some stuff down the line, say that signing this extension for you right now is beneficial because you get X million amount of dollars in your pocket right now. That has to be attractive to Lamar Jackson, to not say, hey, you're going to get your money in 2032, but hey, you're going to get cash, cold hard cash, not cap, cash in your pocket right now today.
Yeah, this is going to be complicated, and it's going to have to be microwaved because they're going to have to get it done and figured out very quickly. That's not the only quarterback that was in the news, though, also today. So we got Aaron Rodgers back in the headlines, but not for necessarily all the reasons that we think. First and foremost, Pittsburgh has made it clear, their general manager made it clear that the door is open for Rodgers to return, which is part one of this story. But I was also fairly stunned yesterday to see Adam Schefter talking about the fact that initially Aaron Rodgers actually preferred Minnesota, and he may still prefer Minnesota. So you've got Schefter out here dropping little nuggets about maybe possibly the Vikings. They're exploring all possibilities to improve their quarterback situation. So for you, Caroline, if you're Aaron Rodgers, would you rather be in Pittsburgh running it back with Mike McCarthy, or would you rather be in Minnesota figuring that you can battle out and hopefully beat J.J. McCarthy?
If you're talking about spring break destinations, those are two doozies. But Minnesota is so clearly the better option for Aaron Rodgers, and it is so much clearly a better option for the Minnesota Vikings. What's the point for the Pittsburgh Steelers to bring Aaron Rodgers back? You're going to win enough games with Aaron Rodgers to be exactly the exact same team that you've been over the last decade. 9-8, making the playoffs, losing in the first round of the playoffs. Stop me if you've heard this story before with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is that really what's best for Pittsburgh? Is that really what's best for Aaron Rodgers? One of the oldest rosters in the National Football League, with a coach that he has some history with, and it's not necessarily all great history. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Aaron Rodgers, a guy who wants to win as much as he possibly can in what is probably his last year in the NFL. Again, stop me if you've heard that before. But for Minnesota, it makes so much sense for Minnesota because they have one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in the National Football League, who's been very vocal about how brutal last season was for him and the entire team. You've one of the best coaches in the National Football League, and you had a top 3 defense in the National Football League this last year. And oh yeah, by the way, you're bringing your defensive coordinator back. Minnesota was a quarterback away from being a legitimate contender in the postseason. And then it makes so much sense for Aaron Rodgers. Like, it's a team that can win right now. And also, Minnesota can say, hey, if we're signing up for 1 year of Aaron Rodgers, then so be it. We need to upgrade at the quarterback position. And then maybe you could also make the case for J.J. McCarthy and say, hey, look, you've had a really rough go at it your first couple of years in the NFL. You've been banged up. The best thing for you right now is to sit on the bench and learn from a pro's pro, a first ballot Hall of Famer, a guy who has seen and played and won a lot of football games. I think that this is the perfect marriage, both for Aaron Rodgers and for Minnesota.
Look, it also knowing that there's going to just be implosion possibilities. That's what worries me about Minnesota. It's not that they don't have talent. It's not that they don't have great coaching. It's that when it went as poorly as it did last year because of the problems they had in the quarterback room, you just wonder how anybody keeps that together and how anybody keeps stability there. It feels like it is on the edge of just everything exploding in Minnesota. So to me, if I'm the Vikings, I desperately need another quarterback that I can trust because I can't trust J.J. McCarthy to stay healthy. And if he is healthy, I don't know if he's really that guy. So if he gets pushed and he gets beat out, like the reality of it is, if J.J. McCarthy goes into this camp and this year and gets beat out by a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers or by Kirk Cousins in this example, if he gets beat out by an old guy that's hanging on by a thread, man, that's a statement about the fact that you didn't want to go into the season with J.J. in the first place. And if J.J. does beat out the old guy that's hanging on with the thread, well, then hopefully the old guy wants to stick around and at least help in the room. And if he doesn't, well, then you figure that out when you get there. But what you can't do is just roll it out and say, okay, we're going to be just fine with what we did last year. I think that would be absolute fool's gold for the Vikings, and it's a reason people get fired, right? Like, the end of the day, they're not going to get rid of the Justin Jeffersons. They're not going to get rid of the talented players they have. They're going to get rid of the people that decided, and they already have with their GM, to play the quarterback situation the wrong way. When you've watched a team fire their GM in large part because of what they did with the quarterback room, you expect something different with the quarterback room. I think Aaron Rodgers can win a lot more football games in Minnesota than he ever can in Pittsburgh. And honestly, I think it's a
100%.
weird win for the Steelers. Like, if the Steelers don't have Aaron Rodgers and they go out and suck this year, we've said it repeatedly, like, at least they'll get a shot at a quarterback next year. I think Aaron Rodgers wins them, the Steelers, just enough games on a roster that's fine. Wins the Steelers just enough games to frustrate Steelers fans moving forward. It's a lose-lose for Rodgers and the Steelers to me.
It would feel so much more meaningful for the Vikings. I mean, we talked to Joey Molinaro at the Super Bowl, and he was like, no, I don't want Aaron Rodgers. Do not bring him back, please. Because I think that Steelers fans know this story. They've seen this movie before, and they did not like the ending. If you're a Steelers fan, you know what you're signing up with Aaron Rodgers, and it's not good enough. If the Steelers went, let's just say, the Will Howard route, they might be terrible. If they're terrible, that means they're drafting at the top of the draft and can find, ideally, their franchise quarterback in next year's draft. But maybe, what if you find something with Will Howard? What if you find a little razzle-dazzle and a little light at the end of the tunnel, and then maybe you found your quarterback of the future in Will Howard? You don't know what the outcome is if you gamble with another quarterback. And sometimes the devil that you don't know is better than the devil that you do. And if Steelers fans feel that way, I don't blame them. In fact, I would probably agree with them. And the other side of this for the Vikings is, I know, like, we all heard it. The Vikings brass heard it. Probably part of the reason why Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is no longer in the front office in Minnesota. Justin Jefferson has been incredibly vocal and public about his frustrations with the quarterback position. The Minnesota Vikings' number one priority should be Justin Jefferson. Anytime the Vikings take the field, Justin Jefferson is the best player on the field. They need to do everything in their power to make sure that Justin Jefferson feels seen, feels heard, and feels taken care of. What better way to keep your star player happy than saying, hey, we know that you've been frustrated with J.J. McCarthy, so here's Aaron Rodgers. Like, if you're Justin Jefferson, you're overjoyed with that, are you not?
You are. Stop me, you've heard this before, but I have a sneaking suspicion that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Aaron Rodgers this offseason. Although reports are he might make his decision quicker this year than he did last year. Glory be to God.
Time is a flat circle.
It is. The scouting combine is why we're all paying attention to Indianapolis, but we should also be paying attention to the Colts. Is Daniel Jones going to be the Colts quarterback for the foreseeable future? We may have an answer on that.
Peterson looked like the clear-cut number one pick in the first half of that game. He looked like the clear-cut number one pick. The fluidity on the floor, the ease in which he moved off ball defensively, creating havoc. He looked majestic.
Sometimes it just comes down to as simple as, like, this dude moves the way basketball players are born to move. Was Kevin Durant the last college scorer that made it look as effortless?
Did you go to the casino after the fight?
Hell yeah.
How'd you do?
We're up.
Up?
We're up.
Well done.
We're up.
Were you just walking around there after the fight and people recognizing you? Like, weren't you the guy that was just on the UFC?
Yeah, that's where I get recognized the most.
Really?
The other
say?
gambling degens, everyone recognizes me there. Anywhere else I go, no one knows me. But if I go there, everyone points me out.
The 72 Dolphins is infamously the no-name defense. This one's the too many name defense.
Too many names,
there's too many names.
Defenses were ahead of offenses this season for a lot of it. Like the best teams in the NFL had the best defenses. We're sitting here talking about this defense and how good it was and how hard it is to isolate one player. And yeah, that's the sport of football. It's a team sport. It's hard to isolate individual players, and Seattle really exemplified that all year.
We're ranking the actual threats from the absolute frauds.
Your contenders, who do you got?
My contenders. So I have Sporting, and I say that because they have had a strong top 8 finish over some other heavyweight teams. They're actually very, very hard to break down as a squad, and they're very, very strong in transition.
And they got a guy named Luis Suarez, which is fun. Just
guard your ears.
Indy is the center of the NFL universe this week because of the scouting combine, but also there's plenty of drama all over what's happening in Indianapolis with the Colts because they have their own issues to figure out. Daniel Jones and the Colts have been in discussions. They've started those discussions on a multi-year extension. Remember, he did a one-year, $14 million deal that was sort of a prove-it deal with the Colts. So what do you think, Caroline Fenton? When we hear multi-year, remembering he's got an Achilles injury. He won't see the field for much of this football season. So a multi-year extension is really just their way of saying, hey, we're going to lock you in through this year of recovery and then also make you our starting quarterback in the future. You like this move?
No, but also yes, but also no, but also yes. That's my analysis here. I don't like it. I'll say I do like it because what other option do the Indianapolis Colts have? What other option do they have at the quarterback position? I don't like it because I didn't like it when the Colts traded 2 first-round picks to trade for Sauce Gardner. I got up on this show the morning after the Colts made that deal with the Jets, and I said, are you sure about that? Are you sure that you want to mortgage your future for Sauce Gardner? Are you sure that you want to hitch your wagon to Daniel Jones for the next 2, 3, 4 to 5 years? Because that's exactly what you're doing when you trade first-round picks. A team that believes that they could potentially be in the quarterback market over the next couple of years doesn't trade the next 2 first-round picks for a corner. So they backed themselves, no pun intended, into this corner. The Colts did squarely hitch their wagon to Daniel Jones. Like, this report, this isn't surprising to me. We knew that this was going to come. We knew this in October when the Colts made the moves for Sauce Gardner. So I don't like it because I didn't like the Colts pushing all of their chips into the middle at this past year's trade deadline. But I do like it because there's nothing else that they can do. There's no other option at the quarterback position. They have now squarely, married Daniel Jones for at least the next 2 years, if not the next 3 to 5.
Yeah, and I think you're right, by the way. I think 3. It's probably going to be some sort of a 3-year deal with an option in that 3rd year that makes some things make sense. But look, I'm going to stay really consistent to my math coming into last season. The reason that I liked the Colts coming into the year was because I like the style of play for Daniel Jones in Shane Steichen's offense. I think the marriage is a smart one that works on a lot of different levels. And we saw that for much of last year. Now, let's be honest for a second. The shine had worn off by the time that Daniel Jones was hurt. The Colts were already starting a bit of a slide. They weren't the team that they were early on in the year. But I do think we've seen enough flashes to look around and say, okay, do I believe that Daniel Jones should reset the market? No. Do I believe that Daniel Jones should make, mid to high level starter money playing for the Colts for the next couple of years? Yes. Do I believe that Phillip Rivers should ever step on the field again for the Colts? My God, I hope not, right? So I think if you're the Colts, you have to protect yourself against any of those situations. You have to realize that, man, and I think they do realize it's hard to find the right guy. I think they have found the right guy. If they can do a deal, and this is why I keep saying I think the deal is going to be less money than most people think, by essentially acknowledging that they're paying him this year to simply rehab, that's free money. So if they were doing a deal and he was fully healthy, I think he probably would have found himself somewhere in the 40s, right? But instead now you're doing, I would expect instead of a 2-year, $40 million a year deal type thing, I think we're going to see a 3-year, $30-something million a year, which is sort of the same money. And it's their way of saying, hey, we just want to get you locked in. We're going to pay you a little less, but we're going to have a 3rd year on it too. So I think that's the way the money works out. I think he'll end up signing in my mind, a 3-year deal that puts him a little bit below market value. But when you acquiesce for the fact that one of those years he's just not going to play, it explains that value.
And if you're Daniel Jones, I think that's fair. No? Like, if you're Daniel Jones, you would take that deal. Just slightly
100%.
below market value.
I mean,
the
thing for Daniel Jones, like Daniel Jones needs to get comfortable, and he is comfortable. So now that he is somewhere that is comfortable, I don't think he's going to be anxious to leave there either. He's got someplace that believes him. When you've seen how bad it can be, and then you get somewhere that's not bad, I think things get interesting. Speaking of interesting, what about this name? Alec Pierce, all right? Mina Kimes called him one of the most intriguing free agents in this market. According to SpotTrack, his value coming in at a whopping $20.1 million AAV is what they're projecting. Are we about to see the Brinks truck load up for Alec Pierce?
Brinks truck might be a little bit too rich for my blood. You say 20. I've seen valuations as high as 26 to 28. That's crazy. I think Alec Pierce is going to be a fascinating one in the wide receiver market because if you're the Chiefs, if you're the Patriots, if you're the Bills, if you're the Chargers, all of these wide receiver needy teams, like it is a rough year to need a quarterback and a wide receiver. I think all of those teams would be kicking the tires on what it would take to sign Alec Pierce. If it comes down to it, and if I'm the Colts, I just tag Alec Pierce because let's just say, he is market value is about 26 million. Well, the wide receiver franchise tag is 28. So I think if you're the Colts, just to avoid getting into a bidding war, you're going to pay the extra $2 million above market value just to keep Alec Pierce in the building for at least the next year, and you can go back to the negotiating table next year. I think, though, no matter what, Alec Pierce will be an Indianapolis Colt. I think because that wide receiver room is fascinating. You have Alec Pierce, who is their leading receiver, and then you have Michael Pittman Jr., you have Josh Downs, and then you have Tyler Warren, who played such a huge part in the passing game this past year, and I would assume will only continue to take leaps and bounds forward in years 2 and 3. So you have 3 legitimate starting wide receivers in the National Football League and a tight end who's been incredibly productive and had a huge amount of target share. Taylor Warren had 112 targets this past year. That's more than Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. So it's a fascinating wide receiver room. Somebody's going to be left on the cutting room floor, especially with the amount of money that's going to be due for Alec Pierce and the fact that Michael Pittman is due $22 million this upcoming year. If anyone is out of that wide receiver room, I think it's Michael Pittman. So that frees up some space and I think would allow the Colts to rationalize paying Alec Pierce the 20 or the 25 or the $28 million that it's going to take to sign him.
I understand the reasons why. But again, I'm going to bog everybody down with numbers for a second here. Alec Pierce last year was 45th amongst wide receivers in receptions. He was 18th in receiving yards with just over 1,000. He was 11th in yards per reception, which is fine. He was 43rd in targets. He was 18th in receiving touchdowns. None of those numbers scream, pay this guy top-end money. And I get that there are reasons why, and part of the job of every team is to figure out how much is the system and the quarterback. I understand all these things. But in a world where we see college wide receivers coming out and impacting the game immediately all the time, is Alec Pierce worth paying one of the top 10 guys at his position in the NFL when you can get wide receivers in the draft all over the place? For my money, he isn't. I know, and Matt Harmon, our great coworker, does such a great job breaking down wide receivers. I know what a fan he has been for a long time of Alec Pierce. This is not an anti-Alec Pierce sentiment. It's just a wins above replacement sentiment of paying somebody like Alec Pierce that much money. It's hard for me. But also, Caroline, we have to acknowledge this is a pivotal offseason, right? Like, for me, in my mind, the seat is so wildly hot, not just for Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, but also for Shane Steichen, the head coach. Like, I wonder if they need to overpay to keep everybody in the building simply because they can't afford a massive rebuild in a year where I'm not sure who's going to be their quarterback until Daniel Jones gets healthy.
I don't think anyone in the National Football League has had a longer leash than Chris Ballard has. Chris Ballard is a general manager in a truly crap division and has never won the division. In fact, every other team in the division has won it twice since Chris Ballard has taken over as GM in Indianapolis in 2017, and has also had at least the first round pick, if not a top 3 pick, since Chris Ballard has taken over. So every other team in the division has sucked and has also won the division twice since Chris Ballard took over, and Chris Ballard has never even won it. What in today's NFL, where the shelf life of a coach or a GM is shorter than a gallon of milk, how does Chris Ballard continue to get away with this? I mean, Chris Ballard drafting Anthony Richardson number 3 overall and then seeing how Anthony Richardson has panned out would probably be enough to get really 31 other GMs in the National Football League fired. But Fitz, I don't think that his seat is hot. I don't. Because I think that the beginning of last year, the first half of the season before Daniel Jones went down with the Achilles injury, I think that was enough to save him some time. Because you get hired and fired for what you do at the quarterback position. Well, Chris Ballard just was able to sign Daniel Jones off the streets, and Daniel Jones looked like an MVP caliber. I don't think Shane Steichen is feeling any sort of heat because they caught lightning in a bottle at the beginning of last year, and everyone can rationalize to themselves, well, we would have made the playoffs. We would have been a Super Bowl contender had Daniel Jones not gotten hurt. So for a guy that has had 9 lives since he's taken over as GM in Indianapolis, I don't even think his seat is feeling a little toasty.
That's so wild. You're probably right. Your logic is very sound. I wonder if, now that the full transition to the Irsay daughters taking over, I wonder how they'll view this season. And also, to your point, if Daniel Jones doesn't play a snap this year, which I think we have to at least accept is in the realm of possibility. If he doesn't play a snap this year and the Colts turn around and win, let's say 4 or 5 games without their starting quarterback, I wonder how much, if they get Daniel Jones locked up long term, I wonder if you're right and they're bought a free extra year just because they didn't have their quarterback. It's wild to see the way that this continually repeats in Indianapolis. All right, from more of the same for the Colts, we've got differences happening in LA with the Rams. There are some small tweaks, and the question is, what's it mean for the future of the Rams as an organization? We'll tell you next.
You covered Darnold with the Jets. Where are you kind of just feeling about him?
Another game with 3 games in a row, no turnovers for Sam. The sack avoidance snipe from Sam was incredible. The back and forth between Sam and Milton Williams was honestly really impressive for Sam on my part, because I thought that it wasn't his best game of the season, but it was the game he needed to have, which was clean. He won the Super Bowl. He's going to get a contract extension. It's kind of cool to see his redemption story.
What was it like being at MSG? Like in the back, the locker room? Like, could you feel that it was a little different?
It's a total different experience from being there as a spectator to actually being there backstage and all that stuff. Total different experience. I was so tuned into my fight. I don't even think I was looking at the referee. I'm just there, just kind of just like looking down. I'm listening to what he's saying, but at the same time, I'm just thinking about the fight. I'm like, yeah, all right, y'all done? You ready? Right? Yeah. All right, it's time to go.
The Premier League has gotten so successful. Survival has become such a priority. Maybe that doesn't lead to the most entertaining football match.
The one thing that you want to avoid is having this runaway first place team by Boxing Day, which happens more often than not. This has been, I would argue, a little bit more exciting this season. The entire mid-table is packed.
Yeah.
So
as an Everton fan, I'm like, yeah, we in the mix.
For Clippers fans, I just feel bad, Tom. I mean, I feel bad. It's always something with the Clippers. It's always something. And then, the year begins and the whole aspiration thing, and then the team sucks. And then they start winning and they make a run and they're in the play-in and the playoffs are ahead. And then this all happens. James Harden does it again. He asks for another trade.
Kliff Kingsbury has been added to the Rams staff. Remember, Kliff chose, according to some reports, to walk away from the Washington Commanders offensive coordinator job this year. And we all wondered, where's Kliff going to go? And now we know that he's the Rams' assistant head coach, which, as Caroline, you pointed out early so perfectly, I really want us to do straight up, watch what happens. Like, I want a Bravo reaction show to all sports because this is straight drama. Anytime we get Kliff Kingsbury added somewhere, it feels like that just sort of makes all the eyeballs perk up, right? So eyebrows went up a little bit when we're like, okay, what's this mean? Because obviously, we've got some new assistant staff changes here. Everybody's looking at Sean McVay. Is Kliff Kingsbury coming in to join the Sean McVay tree, or is he coming to try and topple the tree? Like, what does all of this mean? What do you think this means particularly for Kliff?
I mean, I think that Kliff Kingsbury is the guy that your girl told you not to worry about, because if he comes into your coaching staff, like all of a sudden everyone is on notice. I do want to know what an associate head coach does. Like, if Sean McVay gets sick, he steps in. Like, I don't know exactly like what the role of an associate head coach is. Like, is it game planning? It's not. Is it play calling? Where does Nate Scheelhaase come in with all of this? That's a pretty crowded room of offensive mastermind geniuses. So I'm confused by this move. I think it's a smart move because I think that Kliff Kingsbury is one of the brightest offensive minds in the NFL. And, if you add him to Sean McVay and Nate Scheelhaase and the rest of those offensive masterminds in with the Rams, then look, the brain trust only gets bigger. But it does feel like an interesting dynamic. And you bring up, is he taking over the coaching tree? We talked about Sean McVay flirting with the idea of stepping away from coaching. Whenever it was, rumored when Aaron Donald retired that Sean McVay was going to retire as well. And then Sean McVay this past offseason said, no, the idea of stepping away from coaching feels crazy. It feels idiotic. I would never do it. But is this Sean McVay's way of, passing the reins on? Is this, him bringing in Kliff Kingsbury essentially as an apprentice to take over daddy's business whenever daddy wants to leave? Like, I don't know, but I do wonder, why did Kliff Kingsbury, in a very crazy and wide open head coaching carousel this past year, did Kliff Kingsbury get a single head coaching interview? I know he interviewed with the Titans for their open offensive coordinator position. He had some offensive coordinator openings, but he left Washington. He didn't get a head coaching interview. Why is that? How does the league view Kliff Kingsbury right now?
Look, I think the league tells you their actions speak far louder than anything. And the fact that he didn't get interviews in a cycle that had so many teams trying to figure out what the hell they're doing is just I think there is a statement there. Now, to answer your question from earlier, I can't speak for every assistant head coach, but I do have one friend that was a longtime assistant head coach with the San Francisco 49ers. And his job during the season was literally breaking down the opponent, ripping apart all of the film from the opponent that was 3 weeks out. So he was always 3 weeks ahead in everything he did and ripping it together for each of the coaches so that when they start the week, they start with breakdowns on film. So like things like that become associate head coach jobs, advanced scouting, self-scouting, all of that stuff. It's just a way to be around the organization and, try and add your little bit of special sauce, I guess. But I don't think that suddenly jumps over what Scheelhaase means, because certainly Scheelhaase getting the promotion to offensive coordinator is meaningful. I also think that this is one of the weird things that we do. Like we constantly look at the Rams, and I've done this. I did this a month ago, looking at, hey, does Sean McVay want to be there? Does he not want to be there? I think what we're seeing right now from these two moves, whether it's Nate Scheelhaase taking over as the offensive coordinator or adding Kliff Kingsbury, I think that these two moves are definitive statements of how comfortable Sean McVay is knowing that this is his team for the foreseeable future. Because if you have any inkling as a coach that you might want to step away, you have any inkling that somebody might be trying to come for your job, you handle things differently. By taking a young offensive coordinator that you're probably 3 or 4 steps ahead of by promoting to where he was because he was starting head coaching interviews, by taking that, you're saying, hey, I can take on that responsibility. Don't worry. I got you. We're set. I'm confident where we are. Then Kliff Kingsbury comes in and you say, you know what? I can add a former head coach to the staff that might have something extra to add. It's very Saban-like to me. And we watched Saban do it in college over and over and over again. You get a great coach from somewhere else that's unemployed. You bring him in just to get an extra set of eyeballs. I think that's what the Rams are doing here, and I think this is a statement on how secure Snead and McVay are for the foreseeable future. I am done speculating about the future of the Rams organization because I think these moves only cement that they truly do have a 5-year plan, and that 5-year plan includes Sean McVay and Les Snead throughout the duration of the entirety of it.
But what does an assistant head coach do? Like
things
Kliff
down.
Kingsbury is in title is what, quarterbacks coach?
I think he's just an assistant coach currently, or assistant head coach. It's like assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah, like, so what does he do? He gets Sean McVay's coffee?
Yeah, he looks at things. You know, he's the assistant head coach. He looks at things. He goes over some film. He figures out what's coming. He's looking at advanced opponents. He's self-scouting. He's getting the coffee.
You are just using buzzwords. Have you ever
Yes.
Have you ever watched Schitt's Creek?
It's one of my favorite shows of all time.
You know that just fold it in. Well, what does that mean? It means that you fold in the cheese. You fold. I cannot be clearer. Just fold in the cheese. So what does the assistant head coach do? He's the assistant head coach, of course.
That is electric. You're right. We are folding in the cheese. Fine. Here's
Just
one
fold
assistant
it
head coach.
in.
Here's one assistant, I should say, that we now know does have a very clear-cut job. We did get some pretty stunning news in the world of coaching yesterday as Sean Payton is handing over play-calling duties to Davis Dragon Webb. Now, we talked a lot about Dragon coming up in these head coaching interviews. A lot of people thought he was going to end up being a head coach. He pulled his name out of some consideration for some of these jobs. We were all wondering why and what it meant. Then he became the offensive coordinator for Sean Payton in Denver, and we thought, okay, that makes sense. Now we find out that Sean Payton is giving up play calling just so Davis Webb has that opportunity. That is a statement, Caroline. I mean, we knew that the organization believed in Dragon, but, man, they are willing to just go straight flamethrower to the entire Sean Payton offense and let him do this thing. That's a statement.
A statement and a total, kind of gold star for Davis Webb. Because Davis Webb being named the offensive coordinator, I don't think is a surprise because you don't fire Joe Lombardi fresh off of an AFC championship game appearance just for funsies. Like, you do that because you're trying to keep smart people and talented people within the building, so you're going to give them a promotion for that. When Joe Lombardi was fired, it was like, okay, well, that's Davis Webb's job. But for Sean Payton to give up play calling duties, that's massive. That's not just a promotion in title. That is a promotion in every single sense of the word. That's a promotion in responsibility. That is a tip of the cap to what he means. And that is also Sean Payton's way of saying, we want you in the building so badly that I will give to you what is my calling card and what has made me a Hall of Fame coach in the NFL and what has made me millions and millions of dollars. I do wonder how much the AFC Championship game, though, motivated this decision. Sean Payton's play calling and situational play calling was widely criticized across the league, across talk shows. Here on this show, I criticized Sean Payton's decision to go forward on fourth, the play call that he called on fourth, putting the ball in Jarrett Stidham's hands in that moment. I wonder how much there was a self-criticism or a criticism from the top in Denver that motivated this decision.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and also we have to remember that all of this is going to come back to the development of Bo Nix. Now, we've heard Davis Webb and Bo Nix are incredibly close, but, man, it's going to be a bit different, right? Like, how much autonomy will Davis Webb actually have? How will this go? If the first month of the season there are the ups and downs of a new offensive coordinator, will Sean Payton, stay out of the kitchen on this one, or is he going to come in and try and fix the whole thing as it's going down? I do think so much of the conversation of where the Broncos are is based on the path of Bo Nix and the fact that they've gotten a lot of juice out of the squeeze for that particular quarterback. So can Davis Webb continue that? I do think that this is not without at least its questions. And when you are a team with true Super Bowl aspirations, it is a bold strategy, Cotton, to take on this sort of a change with your young quarterback. Plenty to keep breaking down on the NFL, obviously, as Indianapolis is giving us one nugget after the other. But we had a dramatic night in the NBA last night. We'll break it down with Dunker Spot making their YSD debuts. We can talk about how trash those alternate jerseys are. We're in Cleveland. God, they're awful. Coming up next.
I like them.
Who's the dream fight? Like, who's the final boss for you?
Nyla Inoue.
Yeah, that's the one. Huh?
Yeah, I feel like he's the guy.
What a freaking fight that would be.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
How far away do you think you are from this, like, maybe being a thing?
I would say maybe a year.
Yeah.
Maybe just a year away. Yeah, it's
Is the
right
dream
there.
to try to, like, get more belts so that entices him to come after you? Okay.
100%. He's going to get a wake-up call fighting a guy like me.
And Kenneth Walker wins Super Bowl MVP.
The way he's kind of molded his game to work for him has been fun because it's such a hard turn from where he started. Sometimes it feels like a more dramatic version of like how Le'Veon Bell used to run the ball, how Le'Veon would stop and wait and see things open. But Le'Veon, like, he was hugging the ass of his centers and his guards. Kenneth is like, he's like step back so he can see the whole picture open up. And then when it hits, he's off.
The Sixers, to me, are the biggest loser of the trade deadline. You get these middling picks for Jared McCain, one of your most promising young players, to duck the tax. Just a joke. If I'm a Sixers fan, I'm infuriated. The Sixers, losers this trade deadline. It's just so disappointing for Philadelphia, man.
Who in college football could experience that same level of redemption arc? And I was thinking, we've actually kind of seen it a little bit in the past. I would say Jaden Daniels did. Remember when his teammates were like throwing his things out of his locker and talking trash about him when he left Arizona State, and then he goes and wins the Heisman at LSU?
It was a little bit of a turnaround. I wonder what those guys are doing now.
Look at this. Rico Gates on Twitter X managed to capture this amazing photo with the dunker spot over All-Star Weekend in LA. Nekias and Steve with 2 goat emojis. That is accurate. They join us now. They're making their Yahoo Sports Daily debuts. The dunker spot. We got Nekias Duncan and Steve Jones. Gentlemen, huge fans of the show. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. This is amazing. I'm supposed to start with actual real talk on this Cleveland Knicks matchup last night, but let's start with the most important thing. I don't care what you guys say. Those alt jerseys are trash. The land is awful. That color is awful. I don't need the yellow with the cream on it. It was bad against the floor. I'm just saying, the guys somebody got to back me up on this. They're bad. They are bad.
I am afraid. I'm sorry to disappoint. I don't think they're bad. I like the jerseys. I like the land as a nickname. Like, I like the alternate court. Like, I'm kind of here for it. I'm so sorry.
I'm afraid I've got some bad news. You're on an island by yourself on this one because those jerseys are nice.
God, this. You know, fine. Yeah, this is the most complimentary things that have been said about Cleveland in a minute. All right, but they did whoop. Like last night, I text our producer Mike Goldfarb is that these jerseys were about as bad as the Knicks play basketball. The Knicks got just throttled last night. So what do we make of it? Is that a statement of Cleveland or a statement of New York to you guys?
I think this is more about Cleveland than it is against New York. I think starting Dean Wade and having that much collective size 3 through 5 allows them to switch, which is something that the Knicks have struggled with at times this year. It allows them to cross match. That's where you have Jared Allen guarding Josh Hart. You had Dean Wade on Jalen Brunson. So you get to turn a lot of those pick and rolls into switches. Cat doesn't have a size advantage, and because you have Jared Allen roaming, you don't really have the same driving lanes either. That's where you see Cat. He had an efficient night. He didn't get that many touches. He didn't have as many advantages to kind of take advantage of because of how Cleveland matched up, both from a lineup perspective and from a cross-matching perspective. So I was pretty impressed with the game plan from Cleveland. It isn't necessarily something new that the Knicks haven't seen before, but I think they executed that well. I don't think you can bake in the Knicks literally having their worst scoring quarter of the entire season in the third quarter. That's not all Cleveland, but I do think the game plan was sound. I give more credit to Cleveland's defense than denigrating New York.
I'd also give credit to Cleveland. I think that the Cavs, this is what you want to see, especially bouncing back off that OKC loss. You got James Harden for a reason. His ability to kind of collapse and get attention from the defense is key for them. Donovan Mitchell's play has been great. And now you can tinker with different lineups. We can go really small if we want to. We can keep one big out there. We can go 2 bigs out there. So I think for Cleveland, this is them just kind of putting their stamps and climbing the ladder as they get closer to the playoffs. For the Knicks, they've been a steady presence, but they have to figure out, okay, is it the defense that's going to do us in? Is it the offense that's going to do us in? The offense you've been able to trust for most of the season. In this matchup, they kind of fell short there. So it's going to be some soul searching for them, but this is what happens this time of year in the NBA when you get close to the playoffs. The Cavs, I really think, are knocking on the door of a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference.
I'm with you. These alts are awesome. I like the land. It's better than the cleave. So it's better of the two. Fitz is just an alternate jersey hater, and I like them. But I do want to continue on this game last night. Steve, we'll start with you on this one. Both of these teams, both the Knicks and the Cavs, sit at 37-22 after last night's game. It's these two face each other in the postseason. Who do you trust more?
I would probably lean. If you had asked me 2-3 weeks ago, I would have said the Knicks, hands down, would have walked away from it, would have been done. But I think right now I trust Cleveland a little bit more. I think James Harden is the perfect addition to what they need as far as having someone who can score, who can drive, who can collapse and make defenses pay attention to him in a different way than Darius Garland could. And that's no disrespect to Garland, but James Harden's just his ability to kind of engage the defense, be able to play with their bigs, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, be able to make different reads and high IQ plays, on top of what Donovan Mitchell has done, on top of their lineup versatility with Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis kind of bringing defense to the table as well. I trust Cleveland a lot. Now, the Knicks, I think they're very good, but if you had to ask me, I'm going to pick Cleveland.
Well, this is going to be a little bit boring. My answer is also Cleveland in this case, and a lot of the reason is
I don't believe you.
Why do you not believe me? I mean, the answer probably should be the Knicks, like especially once you factor in what they could do on the offensive glass and how they could be a weak point at times for Cleveland. They have this top end talent, but I'm kind of with you. I'm with you. Like I think what James Harden brings to the table, especially when you look at what some of the non-Donovan Mitchell minutes can look like now, when you have that kind of aggressive scoring and the playmaking chops that James Harden has, that should help kind of tide water when Mitchell sits. And I think, again, I go back to the collective size that Cleveland has. If you can put New York's half-court offense in a box and thus juice your own transition attack, like that's kind of a tough thing for the Knicks to deal with. I think they have the talent to overcome it. But if you're just asking me like how much faith I have in them doing so as of literally today, I feel better about Cleveland in the series right now, especially if both teams are healthy.
All right, so let's drill this down. All right, I'm gonna have host on host war here. Steve, we'll start with you on this one. We'll ask both of you this. But if you had to bet your co-host house on one team as we sit today coming out of the East, who's the beast of the East today? You got to bet your co-host house. So then you got to look at him every day. If you lose his house, he's homeless. It's your fault. You bet it if you're wrong, right? So who do you think the
but at least it's not your
house
house
is, Steve? Right. No, it's more awkward when it's your co-host house.
Then I'm picking Detroit then. We're putting everything on Detroit. Detroit against everybody. So hey, Nekias, you better believe in Cade Cunningham. I'm so sorry. That's where I'm going. I'm going with the Detroit Pistons. Their defense, we're putting paws on you, we're putting hands on you. Jalen Duren's rolling. Cade Cunningham is going to do whatever he wants. We're going to get active and after it. So you better start believing in Detroit basketball, Nekias. Where are you going? I'm concerned slightly.
Oh, buddy. Okay, so this is tough. So I believe in you, Steve. I believe in Cade Cunningham. We are fresh off the Detroit Pistons having a 66 offensive rating in the half court against the San Antonio Spurs. That half court offense scares me quite a bit in a postseason setting. I might just go Cleveland right now, to be completely honest with you. Like I think the blend of guard creation, defense, the second unit, and just collective side, like that may be my bet as they ramp up. This has been an up and down year, and they still find themselves as one of the best teams in the East. They are creeping up the standings. They have one of the best net ratings in the league. They've been one of the best teams in the league since James Harden has got there. I may just believe in your guy, James Harden. That might be the pick.
You don't, though. It's okay. I'm homeless.
I have a spare bedroom. You come on over here if you need to. Yeah, I got you. Like, I love the James Harden move when the Cavs made it. I love it even more now, but I'm with you, Steve, on Detroit. And I do want to stick on Detroit for just a moment because Cade Cunningham, after the last couple of weeks, has rightfully so gotten MVP buzz. But with the 65-game rule, let's say Jokic is ineligible, SGA is ineligible, Wemby is ineligible, then do you believe that the league needs to look at changing the 65-game rule in the way that it could potentially impact some of these postseason awards? And Steve, we'll start with you.
I'm so glad this is brought up because someone not named me really was emphasizing this 65 game rule. It might be Nekias Duncan, you'll never know. But for me, I think a great season deserves recognition. And I think you can separate who has done what they needed to do depending on, like, regardless of games played. You have to be incredible to play 50 games and really be recognized. So we can be honest there. I think the 65 game requirement, it just puts such a tight bind on everyone. And now you're looking at a scenario where Jokic is close to not getting recognized. Wemby's not close to not getting recognized. We got Giannis, Stephen Curry, LeBron, who probably won't get recognized. Luka might not. Like, that becomes tricky because we're now opening the door for people who have had great seasons to now be forced to be recognized in certain positions. I don't know how comfortable I feel with that, but I MVP is gonna get real. I like talking about MVP and widening it out early and shortening the list. You got to have about 8-10 names now because you don't know necessarily who's going to be there at the end. And so it's going to be some hair split between Cade, Donovan, Jaylen Brown, Anthony Edwards. There's going to be some alternate names that come into it. So I think the 65 game rule is just a little excessive. Nekias, what do you think, buddy?
Well, after that setup, Steve, I don't know how I want to start this segment. Okay. No, in all seriousness, I am a proponent of at least having a games played minimum. I was fine with 65. I think, if anything, if you want to alter it to 55 to qualify for awards, 65 to qualify for first team, 65 to qualify for MVP. If you could denigrate it, if you could split it that way, maybe that's an alteration to where you can get your Jokic's in, et cetera, but you still have this bar set for the highest awards. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with having a middle ground baked in, but I don't think having a games played minimum in and of itself is inherently bad.
I struggle with this, boy. I struggle with it because I just keep thinking about the fact that our eyes remember something. And when we're talking about this season, we all know that this is what we do in the NBA. 10 years from now, it's but I watched this, right? If by the time we finish this year, Wemby clearly is the MVP, but he doesn't qualify because the game's played. Now, all of a sudden, it changes the way we talk about his legacy. It changes the way we talk about what he's accomplished in this league. It gives legacy to somebody that might not have earned it in the first place. The guys, I hear you. I just think that the plan makes sense until you actually start watching a full season of basketball and you think, man, are we really going to sit here and deny someone that's clearly the MVP the opportunity? God forbid, but what happens if Cade Cunningham gets injured? So now we're going to have to go in and give the context of he was really the 7th best guy in the league, but the top 6 were injured. That feels to me like that's bad long-term, guys.
I think it's different long-term. I don't necessarily say I will go too bad. To Steve's point, we do have a lot of great seasons happening in the league. And I don't think it's inherently bad to kind of widen the scope of who's having good years and who isn't. And I think to the point of value with MVP or any of these awards, I think there is a cumulative effect at a certain point. I think the best per minute guys deserve to be recognized, but you have to play a certain amount of minutes to have more value than someone else. So I don't think it's a different argument. I don't necessarily think it's a bad one. I certainly understand the pushback, but I don't think it's a huge deal in my opinion.
All right. So
I like white.
How do
we love you too.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, let's get to one more piece of drama. We'll go back to the West. We got drama in the West last night. I had to get your opinions on this because we watched Luka pass up the game-winning shot to pass it to LeBron, and it just was an ugly look. It didn't seem to make a lot of sense to a lot of people. I saw the stat this morning: the worst plus-minus of any duo in this season for the Lakers is LeBron and Luka on the floor at the same time. So, Steve, what's wrong? Who's at fault for where the Lakers are right now?
I mean, I think the Lakers need to get healthy, and they're finally healthy, and now it's trying to figure things out. I think for them, they have to. Their offense has a certain level for any of this to work. Their defense is what it is. They're only going to be so good. They can try different things and try and put you in a different box, but if their offense is not at a high level, they're only going to accomplish so many things. And so I think that was a scenario where Luka's got to probably take that shot. You know, if you don't feel like you have the look, maybe you're off balance, that's fine. But now you give it to LeBron, put him in a tough spot. He doesn't have a clean look, not really expecting it. And so I think it's for the Lakers, this has got to be refinement on the offensive end. You got to be able to be a sledgehammer with Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves once everyone's healthy. Your defense is not going to be able to carry you through this. And so I'm looking for them to kind of figure things out and be an elite offense down the stretch and put that pressure back on teams as they get into the playoffs.
I don't know if anyone's directly at fault. This just feels like a situation where these are two very similar archetypes in terms of big forwards that make quite a bit. They can score on the interior. They don't move all that much off the ball offensively or defensively, which kind of bleeds into their overall Laker defense problem. And I think I think the best version of Luka and LeBron on the same team is like what it means to have both of them. That means you can have 48 minutes in theory of Luka creation. He goes to the bench. LeBron gets to take over. LeBron gets a rest. Here comes Luka again. The on-court fit with those two has always been a little bit clunky. I don't think that gets super smooth, but as we saw in Miami, I don't think LeBron and Dwayne Wade was always a perfect fit. I say this as a Heat fan, but the talent can overwhelm. And so if the defense gets to a certain level, if they're able to figure out enough, where they're spacing, how they're being used as screeners for each other on or off the ball, if they can get that to a certain level, then that'll be enough for them to kind of overpower defenses when they're on the floor together. And then again, the cumulative impact of having Luka on the floor and then LeBron on the floor and then Luka on the floor, that's where you get the real wave effect for the Lakers. And that's where they can kind of make their push.
Before we let you guys go,
go ahead.
Yeah, before we let you guys go, just sticking on the Lakers, we did learn last night that Rob Pelinka will be back to handle basketball operations, and I could hear a collective sigh from Lakers fans everywhere about Rob Pelinka sticking with the Lakers. But, guys, we'll start with you. Your confidence level in this Lakers team being able to make any sort of noise in the postseason in this version of the West.
Championship, I'd probably say a 1 or a 0. Make a conference finals run, maybe a 3, win a round, probably 5 or 6, depending on what the matchup is. I do think having that three-headed dragon of Luka, Austin Reeves, and LeBron, that does give you a pretty high floor, or at least it should, and that's where you hope they build more chemistry as the rest of the season goes on. But I don't think they have enough defense. I don't think they have enough shooting to really challenge the top of the West.
My only hot take is if they get the 3 seed, they will go to the conference finals. I'll put that there.
Ooh!
Anything else? Yeah, a little spice for YSD, but if anything else, it might be a first round exit. The Western Conference tough. If they get the 3 seed, they put themselves in a spot to kind of make a run, avoid OKC in the second round. It could get interesting. So it's a tough balance. But if I'm Rob Pelinka, I got Luka. I had LeBron, I got Luka. Give me a chance to make another team. You know what I mean?
Adam Silver's please put the Lakers in the conference final, please.
The NBA ratings gods would love that. Follow him on social media at Steve Jones 20 at Nekias NBA. Listen to the Dunker Spot, boys. I can't tell you how often I'm on a treadmill laughing at you guys every day. So love what you guys do. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us on Yahoo Sports Daily. Your debut. We hope to have you back soon. Thanks for all the great work you do.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Great stuff from them, and Dunker Spot is one of my favorite listens. All right, coming up next, always an interesting listen when Darryn Peterson speaks. His comments have us paying attention. We'll tell you about it next.
Peterson looked like the clear-cut number 1 pick in the first half of that game. He looked like the clear-cut number 1 pick. The fluidity on the floor, the ease in which he moved off ball defensively, creating havoc. He looked majestic.
Sometimes it just comes down to as simple as this dude moves the way basketball players are born to move. Was Kevin Durant the last college scorer that made it look as effortless?
Did you go to the casino after the fight?
Hell yeah.
How'd you do?
We're up.
Up?
We're up.
Well done.
We're up.
Were you just walking around there after the fight and people recognizing you? Weren't you the guy that was just on the UFC?
Yeah, that's where I get recognized the most.
Really?
The other gambling legends, everyone recognizes me there. Anywhere else I go, no one knows me. But if I go there, everyone points me out.
The 72 Dolphins is infamously the no-name defense. This one's the too many name defense.
Too many names,
too many names.
Defenses were ahead of offenses this season for a lot of it. The best teams in the NFL had the best defenses. We're sitting here talking about this defense and how good it was and how hard it is to isolate one player. And that's the sport of football. It's a team sport. It's hard to isolate individual players, and Seattle really exemplified that all year.
We're ranking the actual threats from the absolute frauds.
Your contenders, who do you got?
My contenders. So I have Sporting, and I say that because they have had a strong top 8 finish over some other heavyweight teams. They're actually very, very hard to break down as a squad, and they're very, very strong in transition.
And they got a guy named Luis Suarez, which is fun. Just
guard your ears.
Somebody's had something to say probably after every game this year, so I don't really pay attention to it anymore. I don't know. I've kind of been a antisocial loner my whole life, kind of, so I kind of just deal with it on my own.
That was Kansas basketball's Darryn Peterson talking about the noise and asking how he shuts it out, making it clear that somebody always has something to say and that he doesn't pay attention to it. It's just a part of the interesting layers of Darryn Peterson's season. For anyone that hasn't been paying attention to college basketball, he is one of the top players in the country. He was expected from the outset to be one of the top players in the country and expected by many to be the first or within the top 3 drafted in this year's NBA draft. But it hasn't necessarily worked out that way, Caroline, so far in this season. As when he's played, certainly it's been good, but his availability has been questioned. His want has been questioned. His desire to play at Kansas has been questioned. And now he's being asked about his ability to shut out the noise, and then that is his answer. What do you take away from that?
It doesn't do anything to help Darryn Peterson's case. I would think that when the entire college basketball world, and dare I say darn close to the entire sports world, for a period of time, is talking about you and not necessarily in the most glowing light. Everyone's talking about your motivation, your love of basketball, your ability to be the savior of a franchise. And you have the opportunity to change the narrative about you, which is what you have. You have the opportunity to change the narrative every single time you get in front of a microphone. I would think, or I would hope, that Darryn Peterson would jump at that opportunity. Because what Darryn Peterson could have said is, look, I understand a lot of people are going to say a lot of things and a lot of people are going to have opinions about me. But when it comes down to it, I want to win. I love the University of Kansas. I love this basketball program. I love my team. And I will do everything in my power to bring a national championship to this school. Something along the lines of that. Doesn't have to be verbatim, obviously. But something along the lines of, I want to win. I care about winning. I'll do anything I can do to win. Winning is the most important thing to me. Basketball is my life. I want Darryn Peterson to tell us those things because all of those things have been in question. The talent, unquestionable. We see it anytime that Darryn Peterson's out on the floor. We saw it against Oklahoma State, 23 points in 18 minutes. But that wasn't the story. The story was the fact that he only played 18 minutes because he took himself off the court. So I want Darryn Peterson to set the record straight and to change the narrative about himself because I want Darryn Peterson's talent to be recognized. But right now, that's not the most important thing. Like if I'm a GM that's going to be drafting at the top of the draft, I want to hear that out of Darryn Peterson's mouth. The amount of want, the amount of motivation, the amount of drive, the amount of care. I don't want to hear I'm an antisocial loner. It's fine if you are. Like, it's fine. You don't have to be the, the bubbliest person in America in order to save an NBA franchise. But he didn't help his case. He didn't make himself look like he's any more of the impassioned and emboldened and brazen player that's going to be able to save an NBA franchise. He just kind of sounded laissez-faire. He continued the narrative that already exists about him and that he doesn't really care.
Everything you're saying comes back to passion. And I think what so many people are looking for from Darryn Peterson is some level of passion. Passion for the game, passion about being involved in the game, passion about the way the game is playing out. And that's seems to be, from the outside looking in, missing in so much of what we're seeing. And when it's missing from what we're seeing on the court, then we look to see it off the court. When we don't see it off the court, then it becomes a question of, is that your personality or is it just a greater indication that you don't give a damn? And these are things that NBA teams have to figure out because, frankly, he wouldn't be the first basketball player in history that has gotten to where he is, but maybe didn't necessarily love the game. You got to figure that stuff out when you're an NBA team trying to figure out how you're going to draft. Winning cures everything is something we say all the time. In this instance, it's not just winning. I think playing with the thunder of the gods, as I say all the time. When I say that, I'm talking about the can't take your eyes off of it. Oh my God, this guy moment. Like we've all seen from transcendent players. You may not love the way certain guys play. You may stylistically not be an SGA fan or stylistically not be a Jokic fan. But when you watch them play, you understand exactly what they bring to the court and exactly how they do it. And the funny thing is we laugh about the laissez-faire approach at times of Jokic, but we can laugh about it because it's never in question on the court. It's not just the way he handled the question. It's that it matches a pattern to the way he seems to approach everything about basketball at Kansas. And if you don't believe me, just ask Bill Self. Again, I keep going back to when your coach is making it clear, like, I don't know what else we can do. When your coach is saying, all of these things about the player in the process, it gives you some sort of an indication of, man, is there a bigger problem? And you're right. Like, I want to be clear here. Darryn Peterson's press conference didn't hurt his draft stock. And what he says at the mic won't hurt his draft stock. Just look at KD. KD's a living, eating, breathing example. You can be sensitive. You can have a problem with social media. You can not like anybody that covers the sport. You can have all of these issues. Nobody cares because you're KDMD, right? Like when you're Kevin Durant, you can do whatever you want, however you want, and we will all accept you because you are great. Darryn Peterson may have had that luxury if he had dominated the way that many of us thought he would this year, but he hasn't. So when you haven't dominated, when your team hasn't always played as well with you on the floor, when your team's having to adjust to whether or not the ball should go through you or the ball should go to you, these are all things that Kansas is trying to figure out to try and maximize their best player. When you're this far into the season and you're trying to maximize one of the biggest stars that is supposed to be a top 3 surefire, can't miss franchise savior, that's a problem. When you stack that on top of the sort of perception, it only becomes more difficult. And while we're watching all of this go down, we're also watching one of his peers in this continue to rise. Again, I got to give Booz some real credit here. Just the way that Cam Boozer, who last night had almost as many points in the first half as Notre Dame did as a team. I mean, Duke throttled Notre Dame. And I'm sitting here looking at it saying part of the reason we're having this conversation isn't just about Peterson. It's about the fact that every time the Michigan game is caked in my brain. When Duke needed a big shot, the ball went to Boozer, and Boozer made those big shots over and over and over again. DeBonsa has lived up to all the hype. When you look at this and the way that Boozer is playing on the number 1 team in all the land, if I'm Peterson, it's not just about the noise. It's not just about my attitude. It's not just about the fact that I haven't lived up to the hype. It's that the number 1 team in the country has somebody that is playing like he deserves to be the number 1 player in the country all at once in front of our very eyes.
Notre Dame stinks. Let me just say that. Just put that out there. Notre Dame is a bad basketball team. They're 12-16 this year. I don't really remember the last time Notre Dame men's basketball has done anything. But that doesn't take away from what Duke did. That doesn't take away from what Cam Boozer has been doing the entirety of the season. Because amongst all of the discussion with Darryn Peterson, is he still a number 1 overall pick, which is very much so in question. Sean Farnham went on ESPN and said, I've talked to NBA scouts, and a lot of them have taken them off their board entirely, if not dropped them down their draft board. So, that's a real discussion. That's not a media overhyping this overreaction. So, in response to that conversation, it's been, okay, AJ DeBonsa is going to be the number 1 overall pick. I think we have to make sure that we talk about Cam Boozer in this conversation. I would take AJ DeBonsa with the number 1 overall pick if I had it, but let's not act like Cam Boozer is on the outside looking in of some of the best, most elite, take over the game type of playmakers that exist in college basketball right now. And it is crazy, Fitz, that we have a team like Duke, one of the most traditional and storied programs in men's college basketball, the number 1 team in all the land, coming off of a massive win over the then number 1 team in all the land in Michigan. When everyone was counting out Duke, I was on radio on Friday. I was talking, my co-host was a college basketball guy. We had a lot of college basketball guests. Every single one of them picked Michigan, myself included. Proven wrong. So we have Duke, number 1 team in the country, just beat the number 1 team in the country, and you have one of the most talented players in the country playing for you and going off on any given night. I feel like Duke is still under the radar. I feel like we're not talking about Duke. I feel like we're talking about Arizona and Houston and Michigan, all rightfully so. We should be talking about them. We're talking about Darryn Peterson. We're talking about AJ DeBonsa. We're talking about so many other storylines in college basketball, and we're not talking about Duke. And I don't know if it's because Duke has just set this standard, the standard of perfection, that when Duke meets the standard of perfection, It's not like, oh my gosh, look at Duke. It's just like, oh, Duke continues to just do Duke things. And they're almost victims of their own success. But it does feel like, in a way, wildly, if it's even possible, Duke is under the radar.
So this is a weird phenomenon I've seen of late. I will qualify to everybody. I have one VHS tape in my house from my childhood. I have one tape from my entire life. And on the side, it says 103-73. It's when UNLV beat Duke for a national championship. Like, there's no basketball team I've ever disliked more than Duke basketball. Like, it's just ingrained in my blood. But the funny thing is, for an entire generation, that was the easy thing to do. Hating Duke was the easy thing to do because they always seem to have villains, and they always seem to have, this program that you could just find a reason to, turn away from. You didn't really give a damn about Duke. It was easier to hate them. I'm not sure that this iteration of Duke is that, though. It's interesting to me that maybe it's because of Booze, maybe it's because of Shire, but it feels like without the villain element, this version of Duke seems to be loved. I can't believe that. No one person that doesn't love this version of Duke, Rasheed Wallace, for sure. Ball don't lie, neither does she. He's going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on tanking, college basketball, on all of it coming up next.
You covered Darnold with the Jets. Where are you kind of just feeling about him?
Another game with 3 games in a row, no turnovers for Sam. The sack avoidance snipe from Sam was incredible. The back and forth between Sam and Milton Williams was honestly really impressive for Sam on my part, because I thought that it wasn't his best game of the season, but it was the game he needed to have, which was clean. He won the Super Bowl. He's going to get a contract extension. It's kind of cool to see his redemption story.
What was it like being at MSG? Like in the back, the locker room? Like, could you feel that it was a little different?
It's a total different experience from being there as a spectator to actually being there backstage and all of that stuff. Total different experience. I was so tuned into my fight. I don't even think I was looking at the referee. I'm just there, just kind of just like looking down. I'm listening to what he's saying. At the same time, I'm just thinking about the fight. I'm like, yeah, all right, y'all done? You ready? Right? Yeah. All right, it's time to go.
The Premier League has gotten so successful. Survival has become such a priority. Maybe that doesn't lead to the most entertaining football match.
The one thing that you want to avoid is having this runaway first place team by Boxing Day, which happens more often than not. This has been, I would argue, a little bit more exciting this season. The entire mid-table is packed.
Yeah.
So
as an Everton fan, I'm like, yeah, we in the mix.
For Clippers fans, I just feel bad, Tom. I mean, I feel bad. It's always something with the Clippers. It's always something. And then, the year begins and the whole aspiration thing, and then the team sucks. And then they start winning and they make a run and they're in the play-in and the playoffs are ahead. And then this all happens. James Harden does it again. He asks for another trade.
The Detroit Pistons tweeted out a congratulations to Rasheed Wallace on your induction into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. He joins us now, an NBA champion and a Michigan Sports Hall of Famer. Rasheed Wallace hanging out with us on Yahoo Sports Daily. Really incredible to hang out with you this morning. What's it mean to you to see your impact, even on Michigan, immortalized in that way?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me this morning. It was awesome. To be recognized by not only the actual city, but also the state, the organization of the Hall of Fame itself for the state of Michigan. Man, it was such a pleasure. I was so blessed.
Congratulations. We are, overjoyed for you getting immortalized in that kind of way. And I do kind of want to take a walk down memory lane. Your arrival to the Pistons was widely viewed as the one missing puzzle piece to turning Detroit into a true championship contender. When was the moment that you realized that team was destined to win a championship?
That part, I don't know, to be honest. I knew we were going to be good, but I didn't go in there, even when we were winning, I didn't go in there like, oh man, we about to win this, except for when we were in the championship. But other than that, I love playing with those guys, man. No egos. Everybody's about team first on that whole team when we were playing together. Not only just the starting five, but I'm talking about the bench as well. You know, Darvin Ham, Corliss Williamson, the late great Eldon Campbell. You know, we were so blessed and fortunate to come together.
All right, so one of the things that amazed me about you, because I don't like what if you're watching games with former NBA players, you always hear the phrase "Paul don't lie." You can walk into a bar somewhere and somebody's going to say "Paul don't lie." So we're getting ready for this, and I'm informed that you are the origin of "Paul don't lie." Where did this come from?
I am not the origin of it.
Okay.
The origin of the phrase "ball don't lie" comes from the Philly streets, playing basketball. You know, it's not something that I just said. It's what was said when I heard it growing up. So, you know, I can't take credit for it. I'm the originator of it, but hey, it is what it is. It's a Philly thing.
You made it famous. We'll at least give you credit for that. Because that is one of the, to, you know, reiterate the sentiment of that tweet, one of the most iconic phrases of all time. One of those phrases that you don't even think about it having an origin story because it's so ingrained in our everyday language. You know, going back to that time, is there you know, a specific story maybe that we don't know about that you think about when you look back on your time with the Pistons?
Oh, wow. So many great memories. Man, I would have to say, I guess the time when, you know, we all thought Coach Brown was kind of crazy because he called the same play, but changed up the way that we ran the play. And I was like, okay, that's genius, but kind of strange. It was only one other person I know that did that, which was my high school coach. So I was like, okay. But no, pound for pound was my guy, one of the best coaches that I played for.
Now, the Pistons always, we say the name Detroit Pistons and we immediately say bad boys. This current iteration of the Pistons, they've had a couple instances recently where we've seen some of that bad boy thread. When you see that from these guys, like how's your reaction? As somebody that's lived through it, what would you tell these guys that are out there trying to sort of live through that bad boys moniker?
No, the young fellas are having fun. They're making a stand and they're standing their ground. They're trying to hang their hat on defense, which is you know, which is going to win games in this league. Offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. So I think they're trying to put their pieces together the same way that we did back then. So it's coming along slowly for them. Jalen's doing great right now. You know, Mr. Double-Double. He's a walking double-double in my book. Been knowing a young fella since high school. Same thing with Cade. Cade is put together a basketball package. You know, he has it all. Could dribble, he could shoot, he could post. You know, now he's working on his defense more. So they're putting it together. You know, the Thompson twin. You know, he's a hellacious defender as well, just like his brother down in Houston. So, man, they're putting it together. They're putting it together.
Looking at that photo, the fight between the Pistons and the Hornets just a couple of weeks ago, we called it on the show Bedlam at the Spectrum. Because that was the closest thing that we could find to kind of sounded like Malice at the Palace, you know, if we're talking about the bad boy Pistons. But, you know, other than that, you know, the level of toughness and physicality and grit that it seems like this team plays with, what about this iteration of the Pistons reminds you of your iteration of the Detroit Pistons?
Just seeing them come through the woes. I've seen that team come together, that, you know, especially that main core with Cade and Jalen. I've seen them go through their woes when they were losing night in, night out, losing 8 straight, 9 straight. You know, getting swept here and swept there as far as, you know, division rivalries. But now they're putting it together. They're a solid team. So you definitely looking at them. You know, they're a playoff team. So they're slowly taking them steps. You know, they're one of the top teams in the East. What more can you say about them? They're putting it together. They're coached well. I mean, they're going through them woes. So sooner or later, you're going to see them in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then after that, it could be in the chip, because especially if they keep that core guys together and you just keep taking them steps. Because we all went through it when I was with Detroit. That was my glory years, but before that, losing to the Lakers and San Antonio so much in the playoffs when I was with Portland. So, you know, those were my woes. And as we tried to advance it every year, as that team you saw, we lost to the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals that year. But that when I got to Detroit, that was it.
It's funny because you played with such passion in everything you did, right? You played with fire. You played on teams that played with such passion. Now we have a conversation almost every day when we're covering the NBA about tanking. So as somebody that gave so much of your life to the NBA and you see the way that the current climate goes, what do you say to all the people that are trying to fix tanking as a problem?
That's not necessarily going to make your team better. Could you get a bigger pick? Just think of how many top draft picks there have been in a lot of our major sports, not only just basketball, but football itself. Baseball, where a guy's in college or high school, he's real great. Oh, he's the greatest thing. He's number one pick, blah, blah, blah. And he gets to the big show and does what? Fell. So, it's not necessarily like, now what are you going to do? Now, not only is your team, still smelling like boo-boo, but you just added another boo-boo piece and y'all still going to be lower. And now what you going to do? So to me, it never really made sense with the tanking thing, just to try to get that high draft pick or this or that. To me, that just means you're looking more for the marketing aspect of it. You're trying to take advantage of your merchandising and this and that by getting you a key figure face out there for your team.
I'm going to steal that phrase. Not only am I stealing Ball Don't Lie, but I'm also going to steal this team smells like boo-boo. So thank you for that. I will credit you every time I use it. We've had so much fun taking a walk down memory lane in your NBA career. I do want to take it back to your days at UNC. Everybody tells me that wearing that uniform, representing that program, one of the most storied and traditional programs in college basketball, it means something. It's a brotherhood.
Yes.
What does the UNC basketball brotherhood mean to you?
The original blue blood. Every other team that's blue want to be like us, of course. But, we're the original blue blood. It's something special, especially when it was, for my era, that Coach Smith era. Wow, it's something that always gives you great nostalgia every year. Win or lose, it's a great rivalry. It's the best rivalry in collegiate basketball, first of all. But just to play in that uniform every night is like a championship game for that other team. So you're getting challenged. And that made it a great thing for us. I love my time there, my 2 years there. It was just fortunate I had to move on and go to the NBA. But I definitely love my time there. Live there now in the state of Carolina. Still have a lot of family and friends down there in the area, familiar with the coaching staff, played with some of the coaching staff, watch some of the coaching staff. So it's awesome, man. I love being down there in Carolina. I love playing for UNC itself.
Well, and look, on top of everything, you have nothing left to prove to the basketball world, but yet you're out there now on the floor leading young men. You're the associate head coach at Tennessee Collegiate Academy. What made you want to start, especially given the way now, man, we talk so much about NIL and all these things, like the distractions to young basketball players. What made you want to coach after you were done?
To help young men out. It's not necessarily just basketball and trying to make them NBA stars or college stars. No, it's just trying to make them great men in life. I love coaching down here. We have a great group of guys down here. It's been a blessing. I was invited to be the coach down here around Christmas time. So myself and another coach of mine, Pat Cole, we packed up the car and, hey, we're out. It was something I had to come help a friend out originally, but it turns into something that, like, wow, this is something that I can really, wrap my hands around, be a part of. And, we've been welcomed with open arms here by not only TCA, but also the school TRA, Tipton Rosemont Academy. They've been loving us as well, and it's been a great experience. But just coaching high school basketball itself, been involved with the Nike EYBL camps for the last 15 years or whatever. So I love it, man. It's been a blessing, and I always look forward to it every year, every spring, seeing the youngest stars coming up, having a little impact on their lives, and it's just been a blessing.
That's incredible. And dare I say, I'm sure you've had more than just a little bit of an impact on your life. I'm sure they'll look back on their high school career and get to say, I got to learn from Rasheed Wallace. Where do you draw inspiration for your coaching style? Do you pick little tidbits or coaching philosophies from former coaches? How would you describe your coaching style?
Well, it's always like that. I think in any coach, you're going to have your own style, and yeah, you're going to take tidbits here and there because in the coaching world, yeah, we steal each other plays and put little tweaks on it ourselves. But I would say more of my coaching philosophy is old school, like Coach Bill Ellerby, who was my coach at Simon Gratz High School, Coach Dean Smith, who was my coach again down in North Carolina. Coach Larry Brown, coach in the NBA, won a championship with this man. And, I just take a little bit from all of them and try to put my tweak on it and make that advancement going early with it.
Rasheed, it's so incredible to talk to you. I keep seeing the Tupac of art behind you. I know your kids don't know about Tupac. Are you having to educate them on Tupac too? Come on now. There's no way they've got Tupac in their playlist at their age. Come on.
Well, my personal kids, oh yeah, they know about Tupac. My kids are older, but no, the high school kids, no, they know about him, but they don't know about him.
It's amazing, man. You've contributed so much to basketball and to these kids' lives. It's really inspiring to talk to you, man. Congrats on all the success, being a Hall of Famer, all of these things. But for you to use your platform, giving back to these kids it's just incredible, man. We hope you'll hang out with us again. Congratulations on all your success, Rasheed.
Oh yeah, appreciate y'all. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Rasheed.
Great stuff from Rasheed. Absolutely a legend out there doing legendary things. Coming up, speaking of legends, sometimes legends get back at it, and it's not always the best. We'll tell you about it next.
Who's the dream fight? Who's the final boss for you?
Now anyway.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I feel like he's the guy.
What a freaking fight that would be.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
How far away do you think you are from this, maybe being a thing?
I would say maybe a year.
Yeah.
Maybe just a year away. Yeah, it's
the
right
dream
there.
to try to get more belts so that entices him to come after you? Okay.
100%. He's going to get a wake-up call fighting a guy like me.
And Kenneth Walker wins Super Bowl MVP.
The way he's kind of molded his game to work for him has been fun because it's such a hard turn from where he started. Sometimes it feels like even a more dramatic version of how Le'Veon Bell used to run the ball, how Le'Veon would stop and wait and see things open. But Le'Veon, he was hugging the ass of his centers and his guards. Kenneth is he's step back so he can see the whole picture open up. And then when it hits, he's off.
The Sixers, to me, are the biggest loser of the trade deadline. You get these middling picks for Jared McCain, one of your most promising young players, to duck the tax. Just a joke. If I'm a Sixers fan, I'm infuriated. The Sixers, losers this trade deadline. It's just so disappointing for Philadelphia, man.
Who in college football could experience that same level of redemption arc? And I was thinking, we've actually kind of seen it a little bit in the past. I would say Jaden Daniels did. Remember when his teammates were throwing his things out of his locker and talking trash about him when he left Arizona State, and then he goes and wins the Heisman at LSU?
It was a little bit of a turnaround. I wonder what those guys are doing now.
Breaking. Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao will be fighting in a rematch in their first ever professional boxing match at the Sphere, an incredible location in Vegas, Saturday, September 19th. The fight will be broadcast globally on Netflix. A reminder to everybody, as I say constantly, that Netflix isn't about sports, it's about spectacles, and they got a spectacle there. So I figure, Caroline, we're going to react to some of the big stories that have come out in sports over the last week, but we're going to do it straight. What do you meme style? It's meme face time, all right? This is where you and I get to assign our favorite meme to a different reaction to a sports story that is out there with the weird and wild. So let's start with Mayweather-Pacquiao, September 19th at the Sphere, streamed globally on Netflix. What do you meme to that, my friend?
I memed that. This. You know, that
okay.
Barbie meme where that's what I
Okay,
memed
yeah.
to that. Because that's how I feel.
sad.
That's a bunch of old dudes bouncing around and hitting each other. And that is not necessarily always the most lovely thing to watch. Am I going to watch it? Yes, of course I am. Because again, like you said, it's a spectacle. It's not every day you get Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao fighting each other. I mean, they're two of the greatest. But they're also old. So it's a little...
This fight is
That's my
gonna be
analysis.
straight up like this isn't a fight. This is Dancing with the Stars with some punches in the beginning, because they're going to throw like 4 punches and then their old asses are just going to be hanging on to each other in the middle of the ring for the rest of that time, just doing like the two-step, the Texas two-step around, just trying to survive rounds, because neither of them at this age are ready for the smoke of what we used to see. I kind of went with the, like, just think about this. Old people watching old people fight on Netflix made me think of a Netflix meme about old people. We'll get it up in just a second. But it's the what channel is the Netflix? Because this feels like ultimately, I mean, their target audience is sadly probably my age, and that target audience is trying to figure out how to watch a fight on Netflix, and then they're going to be really weirded out by the Sphere. The only reason I'm watching this is because it's at the Sphere, and the Sphere is just a global sensation and one of the coolest venues in the world. So I'm in on this. But most of the target audience for this is going to be asking, what is the Netflix? All right, we'll keep going through some of the great sports stories and give them memes. How about this? The Mets are going to host a Bobby Valentine disguise night on May 29th, inspired by what the former manager wore to return to the dugout after being ejected from a game in 1999. That's right. He was ejected in 99. All right, and then he wore a disguise to get himself back in to the dugout. The giveaway for the first 15,000 fans will be a pair of sunglasses and a fake mustache. So what is your meme reaction to this?
First of all, I love this. I love that they're having some fun with it. And I love that some of the young baseball fans out there are getting a little bit of a history lesson. But my meme reaction to this is, and let me just say, I did this late last night when I'm feeling maybe like a little bit loopy. I checked in this morning and I was like, what in the world was I thinking? But also kind of funny. This is my meme reaction to the Bobby Valentine disguise day. What the hell is a polar bear doing in Arlington, Texas? Because that's how I feel people are going to be walking around. You're going to be like, what? What is Bobby Valentine doing walking around Citi Field? And then they're taking, the Citi Field Express train back to Grand Central. And they're like, what is he doing wearing glasses and a mustache? Everyone's kind of looking around like, what's going on here? What in the world are we doing here? But I love this. I love this by the Mets.
I love this by the Mets, and I, being a little bit more literal, I do love your polar bear in Arlington, Texas. That would freak me out. Too many bears in Connecticut. I went with, which is actually a fact. I went with a much more literal interpretation of this with my meme selection, reminding everybody that on the left you see He-Man when he wasn't He-Man and nobody knew he was He-Man. On the right you see He-Man. There's no difference, and I don't understand why we were all supposed to suspend disbelief. Like, you see the guy on the left walking, like, it's the Superman thing where all of a sudden Clark Kent puts on glasses and you don't realize that he's Superman? Like, that's what we're doing now? Like, you're telling me Bobby Valentine put on glasses and a mustache, and suddenly nobody understood that Bobby Valentine had walked back into it? More likely nobody was paying attention, but still, this is one of my great faults with all superhero concepts in general, where all of a sudden I'm supposed to not realize that the jacked dude on the left with the weird man bob is not He-Man, but the jacked dude on the right with the weird man bob is He-Man. Like, I just, again, I'm a little flummoxed by all of this, Caroline. Like, you put a pair of glasses on and you're Clark Kent, like, you don't realize that that's a jacked Superman. What are we doing?
I love man bob. We love a bob around here. Love the term man bob. But yeah, it's so true. I always thought that, thinking back to showing my age here, watching Hannah Montana as a kid, I'm like, she looks the same. She just has a blonde wig on. Like, what? Like,
yeah.
She sounds the same. She looks the same. She's doing zero other, things to disguise her identity. It is literally just a blonde wig. What do you mean everyone was so shocked when she took it off? Like, duh, it's the same person.
Look, this is the new challenge. I think you and I are just going to have to get kicked out of an event at the Super Bowl next year and then put on man bob wigs and just walk back through and see if anybody actually cares. Like, all we're going to do is change the hair, and then we'll walk in. Just change the hair, maybe go a little bit more corporate casual with the look. Wear a shirt instead of body armor like He-Man did. And then let's see if we can He-Man our way right into the Super Bowl event. We probably shouldn't get kicked out of a Super Bowl event, but still, I like this. All right, let's get another one in. A little bit of love here to Flavor Flav. He invited the U.S. women's hockey team to a celebration after the team declined an invitation to the State of the Union. According to Flav, they accepted your meme reaction to partying with Flavor Flav in Las Vegas.
This is my meme reaction. This is my real-time reaction to hearing this news. I just hugged my phone. I just loved it so much. I saw this news and I thought, oh, first of all, Flavor Flav is a steadfast supporter of women's sports. He puts his money where his mouth is, and this is yet the example of that. So we appreciate that from Flavor Flav. Like, this is not a political sentiment in the slightest. If somebody laughed about inviting me somewhere, I probably wouldn't go either. But I just love so much that the U.S. women's hockey team has a place to go to be celebrated by somebody who is eager to celebrate them. I love it so much, and I hope that they feel loved and appreciated, and I hope that they have the best time ever, because I would love to party with Flavor Flav. Please consider this my request for an invitation. I want to come.
Yeah, look, that's really what this comes down to. I just went with the straight, yeah, boy, sort of any sort of Flavor Flav, yeah, boy, meme, because, like, look, if you party with Flavor Flav and you take a shot every time he says Flavor Flav, you are not going to make it through the night. I'm just letting you know. He says it a lot. It's a whole thing, but I'm still, yeah, boy, on the entire thing. Let's get to the ultimate sport, the animal kingdom, okay? People can't stop talking about the video of internet sensation Punch the monkey trying to find comfort in the arms of his loved ones. The fellow monkeys were not treating him nicely, so instead he found his emotional support stuffed animal. It is an adorable scene. Just when you thought you didn't need a midday cry, Punch gives that to you. What is your meme reaction to Punch? Look at this. He's like, nope, they don't want him.
He just wants a friend.
Just wants a hug.
Punch.
I want a hug too, Punch.
He just
but
wants
then Punch
a hug.
says, you know
he
what?
just wants some love. And he's trying to get his plush monkey and I'll give him a hug. Look at him. He's hiding. Oh, he's hiding with the stuffy. That's his only friend. He wants so badly just to have real life monkey friends.
Don't we all? Don't we all? Do you have a meme reaction to this before you?
I do. My meme reaction to this, because I felt this deep, deep, deep into my soul. My meme reaction is that girl who was just like boo-hoo crying. Her. That's me. That was me. I was watching all these Punch videos. I could not hold back the tears. Peek behind the curtain. I didn't know who Punch was on Friday. And our producer, Mike Goldfarb, texted us about Punch. And I was like, not familiar with his work. Did a deep dive on Twitter. 5 minutes later, maybe not even 5 minutes later, I said I would die for him. I would literally die for Punch. And I'll punch a monkey. I will. Any of those monkeys that were mean to Punch, I swear that I would fight to the death for Punch.
I don't think fighting a monkey is a great. I don't think fighting a monkey is a great idea, but I do suddenly. I found myself going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out how you adopt a monkey. All right, this was my meme reaction to it as an animal lover. I'm just like, and I'll give Punch a great home, and then he can just sit here and cuddle. This was my reaction. Together, we can do anything. I just imagine Punch with his emotional support, although, like, Punch is a tiny monkey. That is not a tiny cat. That is a cat that probably needs to go on some weight management food to whoever owns it. But I'm not here to fat shame the cat, just a little bit. But at least the cat has the emotional support, plush little birdie next to it. That's what Punch is going to come back bigger and better. And when Punch is like fully grown and massive and still has his little plush buddy emotional support, there we go. We have figured it out. Just to make sure that you see
love
that.
you, Punch.
I think this is also pretty indicative. Caroline's out here saying, yeah, and I'm just watching a house burn down. Nothing says Yahoo Sports Daily more than all of this picture. What I know is, again, make sure you're sticking with the Yahoo Sports Network all day. We've got great shows live from Indianapolis at the Combine all afternoon. Don't miss it. Come back. See us tomorrow, 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Come back. Watch Yahoo Sports Daily tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with us.